Welcome to Market Buzz. I'm Greg Schnell, the Canadian technician and host of the Market Buzz. Each show we do a deep dive into different industries using weekly charts to see what is happening on a long timeline. Please follow me on Twitter at Schnell Investor, and you can also find my blogs and articles on ospreystrategic.org as well as StockCharts.com. So the main problem with the bull market is it's uphill all the way, and we've been stuck sideways for the NASDAQ and the SPX for a couple of weeks, and we've been stuck sideways for the Canadian market and the Dow Jones Industrials for 3 weeks now. So becoming a bit of an interesting one. So one of the questions I have, is there more upside? And perhaps we can get into some of the charts. So rather than diving into an industry here, if I had to pick one I liked right now, it'd be semiconductors, and the aerospace and defense areas look okay. But one of the things as a technician to look for is the signs that are around us. And so I want to cover off some of that today. So again, we're going to cover off the current market conditions, why the market is hard technically here. And I don't mean hard from a going up perspective. I mean hard to analyze here because everything's kind of flat. We don't have any upside momentum left. And we have a bunch of indicators that are rolling over. So tomorrow I'm hosting a presentation. Actually, by the time you hear this, it'll be today. Hosting a presentation on what we provide at Osprey Strategic. And maybe there's something there for you. It's literally just an information session about how we do things. And if you're interested, you could just type the link in the browser bar on a new tab, and hopefully that'll get you to be able to make a reservation for the meeting. I would say one thing, it'll be at 1 p.m. Eastern time. If you're unable to get there, we'll also be posting a link to it in the free articles and charts section of the Osprey Strategic website, so you could go there and check out the recording after. And it'll take you to a page like this that basically you just put in your name and address or name and email address, and you should be good. Again, all we're trying to do is explain how we analyze the market. And hopefully you'll find some value in that. So anyway, give that a shout. So one of the things that is going on here is we have maybe let's just start high level. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to put the SPY and the QQQ in here. And this gives us the chance to look at the market. These two charts side by side. I really like this one. Gallery view, you can put up to 2 names in here with a comma in between them and compare the 2 charts. But what you see is on the S&P 500, we had the big rocket up on the back of the Fed meeting, and really we haven't done anything since then. So we closed the Fed day right around 411. And here we sit at 412 and change. So not a lot of improvement over the last 2 weeks. Now, that doesn't mean the market can't go up from here. What we call that is a sideways consolidation. The real question is does the market start to roll over here? And so that's what we're trying to figure out. And I'll give you some ideas about what I'm looking for that. So when we go to the daily view chart, one of the things that is sitting here in front of us is this, and I'm using the ETFs, is the prior resistance levels. And you can see back in August, we kind of got up a little bit higher than this, but essentially up in this area and rolled back over. So we were within 10 points of the August high. Now, let's just say that this is a bull market flag. So we build our little flag and we're starting to break out and we go higher. Obviously, that would be good. Charts like Tesla and NVDA, 2 of the leaders recently, continue to have nice days today, so they're being bought. But we have lots of other charts that are breaking down. So it's pretty critical here that we watch. Now, one of the things that's starting to go on, our upside momentum as measured by the PPO is rolling over. We actually got a sell signal today on the S&P 500, and on the NASDAQ, we haven't quite got a sell signal. This number in here would have to go negative for the sell signal to be complete. So without looking at a zoom panel or zooming in, still hasn't crossed, but let's call it close enough. What we want to be aware of is in August, when this rolled over, it was a pretty meaningful rollover. But I want to talk specifically about the timing of that event relative to the overall market. We have 4 periods where we get earnings out. So it's usually January, April, July, and October. And so we've just come through January and we're now into the middle of February. And if you think about the same thing for August, they got to the middle of the month and it was roughly 15th through the 16th that the markets made the highs. And by the end of the week, they were still okay, but then it literally started to fall away by the end of that week. And options expiration, just to pick a date, was roughly the 18th of August, maybe the 19th. So you're sitting there at the middle of the month. It's been an earnings period. You get to options expiration and you start to roll over. And that's kind of where I feel like we're at now. So what we're watching for here is, do we have enough enthusiasm to carry the market higher after options expiration, especially after earnings and then the options expiration? Or are we about to, roll over and basically start the move back down again? One of the critical factors for me in all of this is just trying to keep track of what is working. And last week, for the first time in 6 weeks, we started to have defensive stocks start to lead. So the best performers were energy with a rally on Friday. And then we had things like utilities and defensives actually held up pretty well. And whereas communications and consumer discretionary got weaker. And we can see that on a chart. This is available for everybody over here. You can go into the perf charts and just put S&P Sector ETFs. And I always like to change this to 6 days. So 6 days shows us what's going on relative to the S&P. And if we just want to know absolute returns, we unhook the S&P 500 and it just shows how the percentages have moved. Now, consumer discretionary is up marginally, 0.42 over the last week. And the energy sector with a big move on Friday. If I rotate this chart backward, and I can do this one at a time, what we see is, so this is to the end of February 13th, so the Monday, and then this is where we sat last Friday. And really the only thing that was up was this big energy pedestal. And then by Thursday, you can see everything was pretty red. So for the last 4 days, we haven't done anything. So Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. And when we look at this just as how the chart's changing, Monday had a big up day, but it wasn't our leading areas that, well, obviously they lifted on Monday, but they still weren't taking off. Now, technology was one of the better ones. Again, energy's still kind of weighted by the move on the Friday. And then now if we move it out one more day, you can see we don't have anything that's been up over the last 6 days except energy and discretionary. And Tesla had a big day today, which falls in discretionary. It was up, and I'm talking on Tuesday evening, it was up about 7.5%. So we've got this situation where the market doesn't have a lot of momentum, as you can see. And the real question is, can we push higher? So one of the ways I like to do this is to just go into something like the NASDAQ 100. Now, this is all growth related, and just say what is going up. So, this list is roughly 100 stocks long, right, in NASDAQ 100. And so you can see that this many stocks, call it 30 on that page roughly, and then another 30 would get us down to here. And then from Microsoft down to here, that's another 30, and then another 10 or so. And real rough, you could see that most of the price action was in this bottom section. Everything else was kind of muted or offset. So when I look at what was performing, Booking Holdings made a nice move up of 2%. Zoom Video trying to lift off this base. Align Technology, this one had jumped a few weeks ago. And then when we start to look through these names, to me, I think, it looked like a pretty good day for growth, but we ended up with the market, I'll call it imbalance or flat. But Tesla got bid up, Cadence Designs got bid up, NVDA got bid up. So let's just take we'll take these numbers off the front here. And again, the way to do this, I just want you to be very comfortable moving in and out of this. So we're going to select all and then just say remove the numbers. And then we can sort it based on anything we want. So we're just going to go summary. And we're going to sort it. We could either do it on scooter ranking, right? So anything that's kind of really performed well lately. And you can see a lot of the names that we saw as top performers today were also getting up in the top of this list. So it looks pretty good. Anyway, that's based on the scooter ranking, but we could also do the percentage change. And what we're watching for or trying to find is, are we going to come out of this funk and move to the upside? And if we were going to do that, how would we know? So let's just look at some of these charts, but I have some other things I want to share with you right after we get through this. And the idea is to be aware of what's going on in the market in the background so that we don't end up getting trapped in a down market. So let's just say it rolls over on Thursday, Friday, Monday, whatever. The market all of a sudden starts to get back the gains. Again, the PPO indicator is starting to roll over on the indexes. And we'll see if we've got any real structural strength to the upside. But now that we've got these numbers in place here, we can just go and we can look at them either in a gallery view or just 25 per page, which I like this view, just kind of flipping through. And when we look at this chart, so Pinduoduo hasn't gone anywhere. Here's NVIDIA, really nice push today, but their PPO momentum indicators right at the top here. So it's not kind of my favorite place. I'd rather add down here at the bottom than add up here at the top. Netflix is already rolling over, so I'd probably just let somebody else kind of make the base in that one. C-Trip, maybe I should talk about the indicators. So I have the StockCharts technical ranking at the top, and this TCOM or trip.com has been way up here for a while here. It's been 3 months, but it really hasn't done anything since the beginning of the year. So oddly enough, really strong stock in November and December. And then when we did have the big rally, this stock did nothing. So it's really kind of frustrating because you'd think, well, it was leading then, it should take off, but it did not. Now the question is, PPO is resetting down near zero. Perhaps it can finally break out of this funk and get going to the upside. Align Technology had a huge gap up and now pulled back. So this is just kind of consolidating that gain. But again, I'm not a big fan of trying to buy it up here where the PPO is already extended. Other people might be better at that trade than I am, but that's not for me. IDEX Labs, again, pretty much sideways for the last 4 to 5 weeks. DXCM, nice move in the last 2 or 3 days here where it popped up and then just kind of consolidating those gains. We actually got down below zero on the PPO. Now, if this is just going to come up here and roll over again, that would be a problem for me. So this one's interesting to watch how it behaves here. Can it start to break out to new all-time highs, or is it just going to find resistance at the prior levels? Gilead Science had a relatively rough day today, just trying to break above resistance, couldn't. And when I looked through my industry groups today, biotechs were down, but pharmaceuticals were setting up nicely. The charts for them as an industry group were looking somewhat better. So I like looking at that. And again, we're just looking to see what's going on here. This is, basically sideways for 2 weeks. Nothing really since the Fed meeting. So we had the Fed meeting right here, and then we've just gone sideways. Skyworks, this one's involved in 5G. Big push on earnings, I think, a week ago, and then sideways so far. PCAR, this is trucking related, and you just see, kind of jumped up on February 23rd, 3 weeks sideways, right? Really odd. Even the Fed day didn't really help it that much. I mean, it pushed it up, but we haven't had any momentum. So not sure where that chart wants to go right now. All of these, what we're looking for is some sort of, new moves to new highs. And here we're sideways for a month. ASML, the chip technology manufacturer. So the manufacturer that the chip companies rely on for their machinery, I think is my understanding of the company. Biogen here just sideways, really hasn't done anything since since November. And we're sitting there in a sideways pattern. But it doesn't make it bad. It's just that it's, time spent in the market here, and really you haven't made any money for holding the stock. Booking Holdings was looking okay and then started to add volatility here. So started to drop and now trying to retrace. Can it get going? Good question. Cadence Design, this one was pretty much right near prior highs and now launched. Very nice push, and you can just see the volume was a beautiful surge. 2 million shares yesterday, 3 million shares today. Somebody might have known somebody, because that was the highest level in about 2 months. I guess there was one back there, but all of a sudden up we go here. So a nice buy on this day around 185 and up to 200. Ross Stores just sideways. Starbucks. So again, looking at the leadership stocks, lots of these are just going sideways and they're not really making any moves yet. We've had a few that are starting to. Here's BIDU, and remember China was all the rage. They're reopening. The stock's been pretty choppy and really hasn't done anything since the beginning of February. It is up since January 1st, but nothing like it. I like it from January 1st, which is where I thought the entry should be. Recently here, it's just been very choppy and hard to hold. O'Reilly Automotive and AutoZone, they've both been trying to turn higher. AutoZone, interesting how expensive both these stocks are. I think AutoZone's up around $2,500 a share. This one's $860 a share, so you really got to want to commit. So in terms of a percentage move, it's still nice. But again, lots of shares or very few shares, so the stock really needs to move. Facebook or Meta, I guess I should change my name on that. What you see here is the stock jumped up and then pulled down sideways. And we just call that a bull flag, right? It's consolidating its gain. But everything is rolling over here on the PPO. So when I look through these winners, I'm having trouble finding stocks I want to enter because they're all so stretched to the upside. And I think that's one of the reasons the market might need to pull back a little bit more here. Marriott Hotels was another one that shot up nicely today. Fiserv was about a week ago. So you've kind of got these big thrusts and then they just go sideways. They don't have any follow through. That makes it a little bit more difficult. So when I'm looking across the market, that's kind of the problem I see. And let's just compare here. This is the S&P 500. So since the Fed meeting, it's been going sideways for 2 weeks. I mentioned that. Here's the Dow 30 stocks, and here's the Canadian market, the overall index. And you can just see no real money to be made there for almost 3 weeks. The markets are sideways in both cases. Now, on the 60-minute chart, the PPO momentum is holding up better on the Dow than it is on the Toronto market, but perhaps it's going to finally turn and burn higher here. But you can just see how this momentum has gone flat from the uptrend and really hasn't gone anywhere. Now, I produce an index called the Strength Index, and it's been getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So it's actually reflecting that the market doesn't have momentum higher, but yet the market hasn't broke down yet. So is it a bad signal if the market just goes sideways, or how should you interpret that? So I went back and I looked at some setups, and I looked at 70 setups over the last 2 weeks, and only 30 of the 70 were in positive territory. And what that means to me is it's just very hard trading environment. And so the idea to try and find a trading environment that's supportive of being long, where the majority of your trades are going to work, is a pretty important backdrop for me. And that's one of the reasons I created the strength indexes. they've been telling me things are getting weaker. And so the real question I have, let me just go get that. So the real question I have is, can they start to get going? But here's my strength index is all getting weaker and the market continues to go up. Now, the same thing happened back in November of 2021, where my indexes were falling away and the market was just going sideways. So again, I don't know if we go sideways for, a month or two or how this is going to work out. All I can say is the backdrop for trading to the upside is very difficult here. And, maybe if you're in Tesla and in NVDA and some of those names, you're doing okay. But it literally, when 30 out of 70 stocks you're in are down instead of up, you have to do a really good job of risk management. And I'm not doubting that you can do that. The real question is, you're doing a lot of active trading and having a little bit of losses on 40 shares, and then you've got 30 shares with some gains. So again, the perspective more than anything for me here is the market is hard and it's chopping. And from a technical perspective, again, not getting into earnings or getting into fundamental analysis or any of that kind of stuff, is we're chopping sideways and we need to find some way to break through that. I will say one positive that happened on Tuesday was ARK was actually up 2.5%. And so you got the 200-day moving average, it ran up, it pulled back. And now on a day where the indexes were relatively flat, this was up 2.5%. So to me, somebody's showing up to start to buy some risk here. Now let's just see, we've got options expiration Friday. I mentioned how that affected it back in July and August timeframe. So we'll need to see it, make sure it rotates out. But when I look at a PPO up here and now I get the lift, I have a hard time adding to it here. So maybe there's better traders out there than I am, but there definitely is. What would be a real question for me is, do we need this to come back down more and reset before it starts to turn higher? So those are some of the clues I'm looking for to try and find our way through this market here. When I go back and I look at, just some of the things that I'd like to see also moving up, or in this case, moving down, looking at the yields on the bonds, not FCX, FVX. What you see here is they continue to push higher. And so the bond market is breaking these downtrends, and yet the equity market doesn't believe the bond market. So I'm still uncomfortable that the equity market has the strength. And again, in August here, we kind of bottomed out. And then by the middle of August, we broke this downtrend and started to take off to the upside. Maybe nobody's expecting a move of this size to the upside, but we're still climbing up and away. And I think that's one of the reasons that the equity markets are starting to stall here, because as the yields continue to go higher, and again, they had a big outside day on the back of this CPI number today. If the bond yields are going to continue to push higher and put pressure on the overall equity market, I would expect that to be a friction point and the equities just struggle. So we're in this sideways choppy range, and unless bonds start to lighten up, that to me is a problem. Now, we kind of got up to prior highs and we kind of closed right where we did back in late December when the market started to rally. So maybe yields start to move down here and the stock market can get out of the way and get going again. But it's technically stuck here for multiple reasons. And again, with the options expiration on Friday, I really don't have a feel for which way it wants to break. I would just say that underneath the surface, my data is suggesting weaker, but then I look at Tesla, NVIDIA, ARK, and they're starting to get a bid. So maybe it just needs a little bit more time to get going. But try not to be too impatient here and fully loaded if the market is extended and wants to start to roll over. Again, if you've got any interest in the seminar, it'll be just after this show airs live on StockCharts TV. You can catch the live version by going over to the website and registering, or catch the recording later on. So thanks for taking the time to join me on Market Buzz. Market Buzz airs Wednesdays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can also see the recording on StockCharts TV YouTube page. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.